So good morning, and comrades and friends. And I suppose that most of these Chinese participants have more information and materials to know my speaking. And so I just try to change into English and then to make these foreign participants to understand what is the situation in China. But first, I hope that you can just put aside of your cosmology and ideology, just focus on the practical issues, especially objective data and events. For that, let me start my speaking by giving a story. Before I'm here, I was in the field work in North Jiangsu in a township. Originally, from 1980s, when China started the economic reform, this township and the village, these areas, initiate the low-level industries. It's a plastic production. And then they buy a lot of junk from overseas. It's garbage. And then cleaned by their own river. It means that to make very severe pollution in the water, and so also in the land. And it means that large amount of the local people move out because they cannot eat the food they produce. And then this area became severe polluted area. So how to remove the pollution? For what? For better life? But I think that is caused by the new strategy. That is, the whole China have to change direction from the industrialization, capitalization, and whatever these transitions to a new trends. That is ecology. So now this time, when we have the 6th South-South Forum on sustainability, the first the contents of this conference is ecology. So I gave you the story that to show that how they change their economic affairs from the very severe pollution production into ecological production. Every change, you need to pay the cost. Because originally, thousands of people rely on such kind of industries. And then also, because of the so-called reform, most of these workshops, these small enterprises, belong to private. So if you make them, you enforce them to move out, and then to set up a new industry, that will be a very big cost. And then you may also have a lot of uprising and rebellions from the mass because they benefited. They never paid the cost of the pollution, but they benefit from these so-called low industries. That is the problem. So my team works in the field, try to do the investigation to know that how they change. Finally, we found that, okay, the governments just paid the infrastructure construction, but they need to mobilize the other part to be the partner, to join this change, to change the so-called low levels, high polluted industries into the ecological new economy. So by what? We all know that there is one thing is very important, that is the cyber industry. You also know that the so-called 电商, how to say this means?
Commerce.
E-commerce. Yeah, the e-commerce in China is very popular. So they are trying to mobilize these young people to change their business by the e-commerce. And then they try to also to initiate the local workshops by the traditional business, like some local art. And also some, how to say that, you know, a lot of low middle class or middle class population in the cities, they now play some, how to say, the 多肉植物, this somehow like a desert plants can be made by the rural people. So that is not food, but it's just a it's a kind of penjing. How to say that? But anyway, it's a
Decorational plants.
yes,
Decorational.
decorational plants. Okay, so they changed by the local products, and then to make people step by step change their business by the e-commerce. And because e-commerce not only to some businessmen, but can to all the population. So that means that the markets became larger, and then a lot of the office people in cities, they are trying to buy these decoratory plants. So and then they, by that they set up the so-called 物流 logistic center, and then step by step they changed. Now they became a kind of model. I mean, how to change the overproduction industrialization into a new trend that is ecological business. So that means that nobody very hard to push them to change, but by some kind of new business, they can move people step by step. So change their business from the high pollution to no pollution. That is a kind of model. I just try to tell you that we have so many. So if you are trying to know something, you'd better go down to the local, and then you may have how to say that? You may have the model, you have a story, and then you can know what is now China change. But why the central government wants to change? Because this one, you can see that China followed the West-centric capitalism 40 years, and then created big number of the capital, not only the industrial capital, but also the financial capital. And then when you have such kind of big financial capital, what you should do? Follow the financial capital regulation, and then enlarge the financial market to create this intangible economy, and then to make your money, at least also the investors, to be the venture investments institutes. And then when the people just have the same behavior like New York, I mean the financial center, and then the wealth, the properties must be more concentrated to a small group. And then the gap between rich and the poor will be enlarged. What is that? That means you destroyed your society, destroyed your nation. And so people would not to follow you. So that is the very practical issue. Any leading party, any leading group, any politician must take into the consideration. So think about this one. I show this data. Since the new century, China became a kind of big giant. China became the top one industrialized country, produced large amount of the industrial products, the biggest one. And then by that, China need to buy from the globe and sell to the globe, and then the commercial capital, also the biggest in the world. So industrial capital, commercial capital all became the biggest, and then when you buy and sell to the whole globe, to the whole world, and then you need to have a big money. So the financial capital also enlarged. And especially when the RMB yuan increased the exchange rate, means that the volume of the local currency increased. Certainly large number of foreign capital will flow in, and then to take the benefits by such kind of exchange rate change. So that means that no matter whatever ism you claim, you said we are Chinese, we are socialist country or whatever, but you cannot stop the capital enlarge. I mean, that is a very objective issue. You set up the big industrial capital, and then the commercial capital, financial capital follow up to be the large. So too big to fall. That is similar as the United States. So now United States now is a big elephant. Now China is a big dragon, whatever. It's all became too big to fall. That is the situation. So that is why the first I said you'd better put aside your cosmology, your ideology, or whatever isms, stations, and put aside, and then just read this data to know what happened in China. So nowadays, just change your position. If you are the leader in China, you want to change. You don't want to follow this financial capital occupied markets and then to make the wealth to small group. You want to make the even, the balance. What you should do. And you deal with these interest group, financial interest group, industrial interest group, whatever interest groups. And then by the ideology, especially West-centric ideology and whatever, you believe that's okay, it's easy because you are the totalitarian system. Any system need to deal with the interest group. Any politician, if you want to take your power, you want to maintain your power, you need to make the balance for all different interest groups. Yes, it's very popular. Anybody understand? So that is why I first gave you a story. We need to step by step.
Can you explain?
That means that the financial capital grew up more faster than before, especially in the second 10 years in the 21st century, increased more faster than before.
What's the yellow line?
The yellow line is yellow line is the central bank to every financial sector. I mean that means that the M0, the basic money issued by the governments, the central governments issued money gave to the bank. But let's see what happened nowadays. This one, I mean the upper left, means that the physical production, the physical industrial production now in China became the top one, much higher than European Union and the United States and Japan, Germany, and United Kingdom. The lower one is United Kingdom. The higher one is China, and then it's increased very faster. And somehow these foreign institute estimated China now has covered to be the top one country economically much more than US if you calculate by PPP. That is it's a kind of way of the calculation. Yes. And but the problem also very important. You should know. You must know that because of the budget deficit, you know that the American budget deficit is very serious. In China also, but it's different perspective because that the China deficit, the financial debt, mainly caused by the infrastructure construction. You may know that we have a network of the fast train and the highway and very modernized airport and whatever. These are the debts. Means the governments use the government's bonds. Governments issue the bonds and then lead the bank financial investments into this infrastructure construction. Even increase the debts, but debts can be sold to can be paid back by selling this infrastructure construction. Means that if China sell the fast speed train, okay, there will be maybe half debts removed. So and there are also a lot of universities and low class buildings, whatever. all can sell. So means that it's not it's not like Western countries. You use the government staff, paid the pensions and the medical cares, and then you cannot take it back. But in China, large number of the debts can be paid back by selling these physical assets. That is different. But anyway, because of the overproduction happening in China several times, since the late 1990s and 2008 and now 2012, we have a 3 times overproduction crisis. So the GDP growth decreased from, in average, 9% down to 6%. Means that 1/3 lost. It means in China means that, okay, that is a crisis. So China followed the capitalism way for more than 40 years. Now they have a similar problem for capitalist country, overproduction. Overproduction make the Second World War in 1930s to 1940s. But here in Asia, what will happen? If China successful to change their big capacity of industry into ecological construction, that will be the better trends. So I hope that you can understand what is the way of China now trying to change. Means from the overproduction, means very much focus on the industrialization, now focus on the sustainability, inclusive growth. So that is why China commit that we will have a no extremely poor at the year 2020, next year. Means they want to make balance. And also, we need to understand large number of the capital investments come from state-owned enterprises and given by the state-owned bank, invested into the West China, Northeast China, and Middle China, means that they are trying to make the balance among these regions. So that is all a big efforts, but all make a lot of debts. So that's a very complicated situation. Most of these people outside of China, they all have the information from Western media, but the Western media never know what really happened in China. So that is the problem. So I need to give some events to make you understand. So nowadays we have a 3 big gap caused by these 40 years so-called development, faster development, and change to the Western styles development model. That is capitalism. And then symbol is a 3 gap. The first one is the gap between regions. So the coastal China developed more faster, and then the inland became backward. And then second gap is rural and urban. The urban, because the capital allocated in the urban area, so the urban grow up. And then the rural, they just contribute their land and their labors, and then they became backward. And then the third one, the third gap, is the rich and the poor. So when you try to make the balance, rebalance these 3 gaps, there must be a large amount of the cost you need to pay. So that is now the problem China focused on. Maybe that you can have a lot of questions, but I think that is later on we will give explanation. So caused by the global challenge. Now, because China, think about this, you buy too much, you sell too much. Certainly you will arouse a lot of trouble. So try to avoid. China think that we can have a new strategy. So these are 3 new strategies. One is a One Belt, One Road. You may know that. One Belt, One Road means that China trying to communicate with these border countries. And means that if China go to the ocean to transport these raw materials and sell these products, there must be big trouble because, the U.S. have the biggest navy and can stop China any moment. So China got to turn to the land bridge. That land bridge means One Belt, One Road. One Road means that trying to rebuild the Eurasian from Europe to Africa to Asia. It's a Eurasian land bridge. Originally, you have a Siberia land bridge, and then you have the second land bridge. Now they are trying to set up the third land bridge. The first I talked about is the third land bridge in Germany. That is 1996. Now 20 years later, it became a kind of new strategy in China. So I think it's fortunately, unfortunately, China tried to change the direction, not only by the ocean transportation to United States or to Europe, but also trying to initiate the infrastructure construction inland. It's much more safety than you go into the ocean. That is one. The second one that is so-called the sub-regional integration, and including of this Guangdong and Hong Kong and Macau. That is it's a Great Bay Area. They think that Bay Area maybe have a large amount of the GDP than the Bay Area in United States or in Japan. Japan is Tokyo Bay Area, and China have this Southern Bay Area. So they are trying to set up the local integration. And then the second one is Yangtze River, from Shanghai to Yibin, across the Chongqing. Means that there's a very long Yangtze River, and the whole of this Yangtze River Valley, they can have an integration. So that's the second one. The third one is also the Bay Area. That is Bohai Bay Area, including of Beijing, Tianjin, and Tangshan, and these industrialized cities. And then these are three regional integration inside mainland China, including of Hong Kong and Macau, not including of Taiwan. But now the North one may benefit by the Korean reunification. If Korea people can set up the reunification, that will be a new land bridge from the South Korea past the North Korea to the Northeast China to Siberia and then to Europe. And then combining this regional strategy, there will be a big room for solving the problem of overproduction. Not by the war, but by the peaceful, inclusive regional integration. So that is when China facing the global challenge, they have a kind of One Belt, One Road and regional integration. But I think that is all not very easy to implement it because that is all have the very old path, old path. It's old way. Still need to enlarge your industries and whatever, and also need to consume a lot of raw materials and then to make a lot of pollutions. What is the third one? The third one is extremely important. That is rural revitalization. We said it's rural regeneration because long history, 5,000 years, China is an agriculture country. The rural, fortunately, the day before yesterday, I said that fortunately we still have a rural area. A rural area means that you're close to nature, and people stay there can have a self-reliant life. Means that you don't need to destroy the nature. You don't need to consume these raw materials too much. You don't need to rely on the import and exports. You have people, according to the statistic, we have a 6% urbanization. But according to the investigation, also more than 50% people live in countryside. So it means a half-half. So when you're facing the challenge, when you're facing the crisis in the globalization, you still can think about, okay, we have a basic life in the countryside. We have a big rural area. We still can rely on the nature by the rural revitalization. So, because last year, United States initiated the trade war. But trade war is a new Cold War. Okay, China tried to more emphasize the rural revitalization. So, but few Western scholar or Western media or Western politician, whatever, Western institutes pay attention to what is China's real change. They are trying to change their big efforts from the industrialization into the rural revitalization, from urbanization to the, not ruralization, rural revitalization, means the rural regeneration. That's very much important. And it's because of the basic situation. China cannot implement any colonized agriculture model like Canada or like United States or Brazil or Australia. No way, because these continents, these big countries, they have their agriculture by colonization. The big farm is not caused by the markets. Big farm caused by the colonization. Yes? So China is a so-called indigenous country. 100% of the population, not colonized population, we are indigenous. So we cannot eliminate ourselves. So we only have such kind of contradiction. Large number of the population, very small natural resources. So that is the basic constraints. Based on that, how you implement your rural revitalization. Set up big farm to make large business? No way. That must be very comprehensive strategy. So that is why you can. I think there's few people would like to read these central documents. It's a number one documents. Central governments issued 15 number one documents every year. The beginning of the year, Chinese central governments issue a number one documents to announce the rural policy and the rural strategy. I'm an economist in rural studies, so I read it. But few people understand what you want to do. I said, okay, first, you think about what is Shenzhen. The first that Shenzhen is invested by the central governments for infrastructure construction. And then 5 communication, electricity, pavement road, water, and Wi-Fi or some telecoms, and the gas, and whatever, all means all built up by the investments. And then you can set up your business. Yes? So that is the Shenzhen model. Nowadays, Chinese central governments, the provincial governments, is 2 levels, has invested into the countryside construction 16 trillion, means that more than $2 trillion invested into the countryside for infrastructure construction and social construction. Is there any country in the world can do that? It's the biggest money in the world for rural reconstruction, especially for infrastructure construction. Nowadays, 98 to 99% of the village set up fiber communication into the village. Means that almost all of these small business, middle-sized enterprises can set up in the village. You don't need to move to the city. That means that you give a room for the common people. You can set up a small business. Also, that's why I gave you a story, because that you can use this e-commerce as a kind of tool to develop yourself. Nowadays, more than 200 million rural people use the mobile phone and then to initiate their small business in the e-commerce websites. This is a big change. So that is why I said if you do have your time, you'd better going down to the local, and then you have a very different picture. What is China? Not in Beijing, or Shanghai, or Hong Kong, but in local, because we have a large number of people living local. So if you don't have the experiences in the local, you may have no knowledge about what is a real China. And with Western countries. And then Western countries, especially in the United States, when you have the overproduction, what happens there? It's easy to read these pictures. That is 1930s, United States. But nowadays, we have a 3 times overproduction. What happened in China? What is the isms nowadays in China they describe? So I said, whatever isms, if you can reduce your unemployment population, if you can make the room for these people to set up their small business, that means the livelihoods. So the ecology and the livelihoods must be rely on the rural community regeneration. So that is our contents of this conference. So that is why I think that, and also we cannot just put aside of the background of the Cold War. Cold War comes from the Second World War. Second World War comes from the overproduction. I think it's easy to set up the logic as a background and understand what is nowadays the new situation, the current situation in the world. So if that's a big country like China, we have 20% of the world population. If China can be succeeded in transit from capitalism, industrialization, or capitalization into the ecology development, that means a big change of the world. So this, I think this very important to know. And the Soviet Union, how to collapse, I think that I have gave the speakings. Maybe you can search the web. You can find my explanation about Soviet Union, the East European countries' socialist system collapse. And then after that, the whole world changed by 3 regional integration. One is EU. I mean, before the Soviet Union collapsed, there is no EU. And then European reunified the EU after Soviet Union collapsed because they used their hard currency to monetize these physical properties in Soviet Union and East European countries. And then enlarged the financial capital power, and then they reunified. And meanwhile, the same year, NAFTA set up. And then the United States can use their high capital platform and the high-tech platform to integrate the rich labor resources in Mexico and the rich natural resources in Canada. So that is regional integration succeeded in NAFTA. And WTO. From GATT changed to WTO. As means a new order, new regulation set up by WTO. That is 1994. And meanwhile, the high tech, the SAP industries and IT industries initiated because that the old Cold War have been given up by United States. And then they released control of these high tech or really military investments. And then from the 1994, this SAP company grow up. And then this world have a big change. And meanwhile, because of the new industry increased, large number of these traditional physical industries, these physical productions move out. So the Western countries, their industrial GDP decreased. These are pictures to show that by the new economy, the financial capital grow up, and then physical capital downgrade. And this also shows that the financial grow up and then to make the Western economy turn to the financial capital era. And then the most benefits country, that is US, because US is more than 60% of the trade calculation by US dollar. So, and also the foreign reserve, more than 60% of foreign reserve is US dollar. So US can issue the money to take the more benefits from the world. That is why they more emphasize the new order. Nobody can challenge such kind of order because they don't need to pay any hard labor to work for the physical production. They only enlarge their financial markets that can benefit from the whole world. So that is why US became the leading country. All people, all the country need to follow such kind of leading country, including China. So the first page I shows that it's because of large number of these American dollar flow into China and then against by Chinese local yuan and Chinese financial capital grow up. Now they want directly to use American dollar in the Chinese financial markets, especially stock market and the wholesale markets and the future markets. Means that they can use their money as a paper to benefit by the local financial markets. Then originally China stopped and refused for many decades. But nowadays, because of this time, so-called the trade war, and China got to release control and allow this foreign capital directly flow in and then to join this so-called the financial markets. So this, that is a change. I think that is unfortunately you got to follow this so-called the global regulation. It's set up by United States, caused by the financial capital in the United States as a big power. And that is unfortunately. Fortunately, that China changed their strategy from step by step, follow US, turn to ecological development. That is a new direction. So this, now you can see the two different ways fight each other inside mainland China. Now, any change, you need to pay the social cost. So that is when the global change their way of the economic system, turn to the financial capital, take more benefits. The whole world became very chaos. It's especially developing country. They have a so-called colorful revolution or something. Means that chaos happened by transit out the institutional cost from the advantaged country to disadvantaged country. That is the regulation. So I don't need to give too much theoretical explanation. We just talk about the debts. Now the big debts in United States, nowhere to decrease. So means that the more you have, you need to transit your cost to others. So we cannot dream that Americans change their way. We only can do something inside to change ourselves. So that is why. So now play game means that you got to follow the game theory. You got to follow the game regulation. You got to follow the game rule. But now if you change not the game, you change your direction. You don't play the same game. That means you may have the future. You may have a hope. So I hope you pay attention to this new change. Not follow the old, very traditional Cold War ideology to see this world. Okay, and let's go to the rural revitalization. This data shows that since the 2005, when China re-acknowledged that what is the critical issue, that's the gap between rural and urban, the central started to invest into the countryside. So that is to show that how many and how fast it's increased. So if you calculate it to every rural households, and these years, the rural households in average has got 30,000 from the central investments. So if you calculate it into the village, in average. You may find every village have several million as infrastructure construction and social construction. A lot of Western scholars ask me about hukou, as household registration system. I said nowadays, the rural hukou means that if you are a peasant, you have a rural household registration, much valuable than the city. So nowadays, if you want to have a rural hukou, it's much more difficult. Then you have, now the local governments enforce the rural people move to city. But rural people want to stay in their countryside because everything is okay, much better than the urban area. So it's a quite big change. It's because of a large amount of the social investments and the infrastructure investments now flow into the countryside. So that is a big change. And also a lot of capital nowadays invested into countryside. This arouses a lot of contradictions and conflicts. Whatever we are trying to do is that maintain such kind of East Asian twin pyramid structure. But that is an economic structure, is a kind of Egyptian pyramid. And the social structure also Egyptian pyramid. Means what? But does it mean that East Asian model? Almost all of the East Asian countries set up the same institution, equal distribute the urban land to the households. Japan, Korea, mainland China, and Chinese Taiwan, and Vietnam all have the same institution. That is equity. The basic property equity means that after the Second World War, they re-implement the historical system. Historical system means that thousands of years, every dynasty in East Asian countries all have, when the new dynasty set up, they carried out equal distributed land. So Taylor rights in the Asian history, especially East Asian area, is a historical event, historical institution, not the new one, not caused by the communism. It's caused by the Confucianism. I mean, Confucianism, 2,500 years ago, set up the equal as a kind of source, equity as the source. And so the political system, if you want to maintain the stability, you need to give the properties to every local household. That is equity. So after the Second World War, we have the same things in name of different isms, different political regime, but in countryside it's the same. So when you give the lands free to every household, means that the rural households became petty bourgeoisie, means that small property holders. By that, the whole East Asian area have no extremely poor. Not like India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or Nepal or some South Asian countries. Also not like Burma or Thailand or some Southeast or Middle South Asian countries. It's because they never carry out the equal land distribution to rural households. So by that means that the rural people can contribute their labor for the industrialization. It's a so-called the benefits of the institution. By such kind of institution, we have the so-called industrialization, urbanization, and then grow up so-called middle class. So by the low class, it's a small property holders. They are not extremely poor, and then grow up the middle class, and then controlled by the high class. High class means that the state capital. The state capitalism is a very how to do very complicated phenomena. Now I just think that is if you control the state capital, use state capital for infrastructure construction, and then to prevent the problems of the deaths, that means it can benefit the local construction. It's not easy to give you a full explanation, but anyway, I hope you just have such kind of words to think about. That is a kind of stability of the three different classes. And then the more you invest it into the local for the infrastructure construction means that the more physical property is enlarged. And then by such kind of base means that enlarge your physical properties physically, and then you can have a more financial assets. Means that the governments issue these paper currencies, not make the inflation because you have a large property physically, and by the properties you can reduce your debts as a kind of percentage. So that means we have an economic stability and social stability. That is my description. Thank you.